Good morning. Good morning and welcome everyone to our 110-year anniversary celebration. And not only are we celebrating 110 years, we are sharing this 110-year celebration with the Glendale Adventist Medical Center. If you'd like to see a little bit more with here in the church with our shared history with the medical center, there is some information. There's even pictures of the old sands, like the very first one here in Glendale's, down in our heritage room. Our heritage room will be open this morning at 10:30 if you would like to swing down. It's right down the stairs in the back. So now I'll let Glendale Adventist take over.
Well, thank you, and let me add my welcome too. And certainly thank you to Glendale City Church for inviting Glendale Adventist Medical Center. We're very honored to have this role here this morning and to be here with you. And perhaps to share some things that might be interesting to you that you may not have known as well. I think some of those things will emerge as we go by. 110 years. That's a long time to be working together, and it's rich with history. And I think that's something to celebrate because so much has been accomplished over those 110 years. Now, you all know that Glendale Adventist celebrated its 110th year last year. So we're close together. We are siblings in this experience together, we could say. So this morning we have a program that really bridges the connection between Glendale City Church and Glendale Adventist Medical Center. And we're going to share some of that bridging. Of course, the people that are appropriate to do that are the people who've had one foot in the church and one foot in the healthcare Glendale Adventist Medical Center. Of course, some of you would have known it as something else before it has become Glendale Adventist Medical Center, but we'll let some of you get into that in a little bit. We have after our prayer here, which will begin in just a moment, we have Kevin Roberts, the president of our hospital, is going to talk a bit about the history of Glendale Adventist Medical Center and its connection here in the community. And then after that, we're going to have a panel. And that panel features some of the people who have been working in both facilities over an extended period of time. And there'll be some interesting insights that come. And then past that, Kevin is going to speak about some of the recent experiences we've had in mission activity outside of Glendale, but nonetheless has been shared across the broad spectrum of physician involvement and employee involvement at Glendale Adventist Medical Center. The spirit of mission is alive and well, and you're going to hear a lot about that as Kevin describes it. And then, of course, we're going to wrap it up this morning with a description of a contemporary program I know you know a lot about, but I don't know if you appreciate how closely this program is also being supported and endorsed by Glendale Adventist Medical Center, and the extent to which it is in fact supporting activities at Glendale Adventist Medical Center. So with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Harold Fonsolo if he would offer our morning prayer, please. And if you could, from right where you are, and I'm going to bring a microphone. Do we have a mic? And this is on.
Let us bow our heads. On this wonderful day of celebration, we are honored to invite your presence amongst us as we rejoice for the 110 years of service to our communities and to you, our Lord. You have taught us to share these blessings, both spiritual and physical, with our communities through our church and our hospital. We seek your continual love and mercy, that we may be blessing our fellow beings during the ensuing years. And now we praise you, we adore you, we bless you, and glorify your great name. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Fonsalo. Now, of course, I've known Dr. Fonsalo since I've been at Glendale Adventist Medical Center as the director of pathology. I just learned this morning that he began at Glendale Adventist in 1946. So has a long history there, and worked as an orderly and in the lab before he went to medical school, and then ultimately retired as the director of the pathology department. So that's an example of the kind of shared mission that we see between Glendale Adventists. And to really dig into that mission now, explore it from its roots, I'm going to invite Kevin, our CEO and president of the hospital at Glendale Adventist, to share our mission history.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, is this thing working? Fabulous. I believe I have a PowerPoint presentation. My name is Kevin Roberts, and I have been at Glendale Adventist for just about 4 years. So that is not even a punctuation mark in the career of Dr. Fonsalo at the hospital, but for whatever reason, God has privileged me with the leadership position at this wonderful hospital. As Bruce said, we last year celebrated our 110th anniversary of service in this community, of God's presence and His providence. I'm going to tell you that story right now, take about 5 minutes or so. But I'm just struck with, as I imagine 110 years ago, what would those pioneers that started the hospital, this church, Vallejo Drive Church celebrated 100 years, I think last year, year before. And Eagle Rock is right down the street. The body of faith in this community has grown because these people had vision and passion. As you'll hear, they didn't have much money. They were not well resourced, but they had purpose and they had faith, and they knew that God was with them and that He was guiding their steps. So let's talk about that. So how did the hospital get here? Well, just down the street, literally, at Broadway and Louise, was this beautiful hotel built in 1886. Magnificent Victorian piece that never opened as a hotel. Apparently there was a pretty serious depression/recession in that decade of the 19th century, and it opened as a school. So I'm sure that the person who built it felt that he was a failure. He had bad timing, beautiful place, all dressed up, nowhere to go. And you've got this amazing building sitting there operating as a school. What a waste, he must have thought. But God had plans. God knew that this was not a waste in any way, shape, or form, and every square inch of that facility was going to be dedicated to His purpose at some point in time. So the early pioneers of our church, who were looking to take this health message and spread it across literally the world, under the guidance of Mrs. White, said, you know what, Los Angeles, something's happening out there. It's going to be big. And this was 110 years ago, and LA was something, but it's certainly not what it is today. So she said, okay, John Burden, one of their scouts, go out and find us a place to put one of our health retreat centers. They didn't even call them hospitals back then. So he goes out and he starts scouting, and he sees this building, and he goes, wow, that is something else. It's totally underutilized, and the building had recently been sold from the original developer to none other than Leslie Brand. Of course, the man who really has a great legacy in this community and has a big street named after him. And so John said, oh, Lord, would you give us that building? And so they prayed and they prayed and they said, but Leslie Brand had it on the market for $26,000. And like I said, they had lots of faith and lots of passion, but they had very little money. So they met with Mr. Brand and said, you know what? We have a plan for this, and it has nothing to do with hotels, has nothing to do with schools. It has to do with restoring health and getting people to stop smoking and stop drinking and stop doing silly things and eating awful things and taking pharmaceuticals that might hurt them and bloodletting and all kinds of crazy stuff that was considered the modern science of medicine 110 years ago. And he looked at that and he said, you know what, you guys might be onto something. I like you guys. I like these Adventists. We hadn't been around for what, 30 years, 40 years? We were virtually unknowns in the faith community. Probably a little weird to the most people, but he didn't see it that way. He said, you guys are onto something, and I'll tell you what. The punchline here is that they asked God for a sign. Fleeces go back all the way into biblical times, and this was one of those times, and they said, Lord, he wants 26 grand. We think we can scrape by 15. If you can inspire him to give us this property for $15,000, barely more than half that he wants, and it was worth much more than that, we will believe that you are in this plan, and we will move forward. So they pitched it to him, and lo and behold, Leslie Brand said, how about 12.5? Of course, John Burden was a smart businessman, had a $20 bill in his back pocket, whips it out, slaps it in his hands, shakes his hand and says, we'll take it. And that was the beginning of Glendale Adventist Medical Center, and it's obvious that a miracle happened back then. And so it opened in 1905, and since then it grew by within 15 years, or almost 20 years, the hospital was, or the sanitarium, Glendale Sanitarium, was wildly successful, and they realized, oh man, we're way too small. We need something bigger. And so the board sent out another committee, and they identified this property on the hill, 30 acres. They figured that was more land than they would ever need in a million years. Well, we're still filling it, so there's plenty of space up there. I tell you, this is the largest campus in all of Adventist Health and the largest hospital. So they went out and they built another one, this beautiful, beautiful small mansion on a hill, much, much larger, and that was opened in 1924. You can see up there that there was some interesting economic transactions. The Roaring Twenties obviously grew inflation. That building that they had purchased for $12,500 sold for $250,000. So obviously that gave them a nice capital investment for the new building and the property. And off they went, and the rest of the story, as they say, is history. The hospital then became Glendale Adventist Hospital in '66. In 1977, I'm a registered nurse, and I actually trained at Glendale Adventist through the PUC nursing program in 1979. The East Tower, which is this golden building right here, was literally brand new by then. You could smell the paint still drying on the tower. But since then, so many things have happened. We now have a new tower on the West Tower, the medical office buildings, ambulatory surgery centers, all kinds of things. And we're part of a health system now, a large health system of Adventist Health, 20 hospitals in the western United States. We're the largest hospital in the system, 2,600 employees, 515 licensed beds, about 57,000. We'll probably have 60,000 ER visits this year. You can see all the metrics of growth and quality that's going on there. But our mission is the punchline of my presentation, and that is to share God's love with our community by promoting healing and wellness to the whole person. Now that mission statement was crafted here probably 10 years ago, but it could easily have been crafted in 1905 when the hospital opened, because that mission remains solid today, to share God's love with that community and by promoting healing and wellness, whole person care. And that's what we're known for, and we are so excited that we are aligned with our faith community. There's our values statement, all the things that we cherish that make this hospital, give it momentum and a trajectory of a shining light in the community to serve God and man. So that is, in a nutshell, the history of Glendale Adventist Medical Center. Thank you very much.
There is just so much to celebrate. a lot has gone on. So now, to continue that celebration, I'm going to ask the speakers for our panel to join me up here. So Sandy and Nancy and Ron and Dr. Pereira, all of you, just come right on up here. There we go. No special order at all.
Okay. Well, I first came to visit the City Church in 1971 to visit my then girlfriend and her family, which was an experience. Dr. Neufeld, who later became my father-in-law, was very proud of his new X-ray department in 1971, and he took me down and showed me all around his brand new X-ray department. And he proudly showed me his old red fluoroscopy glasses that he didn't have to use anymore because he'd finally put in a new digital radiology suite so he could do his barium enemas without having to wear those glasses for an hour before he came to the hospital. We finally got married, and I took training. It seemed forever. And in the 1980s, I came here to teach in the residency at the White Memorial Hospital and work at the Glendale Adventist Hospital. We did some new things in vascular surgery that I had been trained to do that no one else here did. So we continued to advance technology in Glendale. We started a neonatal intensive care unit, which came along just in time for our miracle baby, Rachel, who was born in 1990 in the brand new neonatal unit. And she was a miracle and survived and has done very well. Later on, we got into revolution in newer technology in vascular surgery, and all the things that we used to do to cut people open and spend 2 weeks in the hospital, we're doing now with a little puncture in the groin, or a lot less work. We still do some of the old surgeries. So our church and our hospital have kept up with the technology. We keep putting in new and exciting things. We have to move with the times. We started doing a lot of advanced aortic spine surgery now. The trouble is the aorta is right on top of the spine. And none of the new doctors know how to find that aorta and get it out of the way. So lately I've been doing a lot of that for our spine surgeons. And Kevin, I still use a chest retractor to open the chest that says G, S, and H, etched in the instrument. So it goes back about 3 steps in your technology. For our Glendale Sanitarium and Hospital, we still have the rib spreader. For the old doctor who knows how to find the spine and get the aorta safely out of the way, I still use that. So our hospital and our community are changing all the time. That we've all grown a little older and grayer, but I see a few faces that I've known here for when I came and to visit in the 1970s, and you're still here. So our hospital's changing. I think our church is changing. We need to move with the mission of our new surroundings and keep advancing our technology and help to get people better with less and less work for them.
That was great. Thank you. I've had so many wonderful experiences over the years with Glendale Adventist. Many of you may not know that I was the very first perinatal nursing director at Glendale Adventist in 1980. I know that's a long time ago. I've always had a passion for being a part of the community, and working at the hospital has given me many opportunities to share the mission and vision of the hospital with our community. It started with my push to bring the alternate birthing center to Glendale Adventist Medical Center. The patients wanted it, not so much the physicians, the older physicians at that time, but we prevailed until the beginning of family maternity care started in labor and delivery and eventually maternity floor. We had the very first neonatal symposium in the area and introduced our hospital and physicians to our extended community. After working at the hospital for almost 10 years, I did move on in my career, but I didn't leave the hospital, as I quickly joined in helping the foundation office in bringing awareness and raising funds through those early gala years, and I'm sure many of you remember that. I am so proud to be being one of the early members of the Oak Society at Glendale Adventist. This is a membership society and one of Glendale Adventist Medical Center's first outreach to our community in asking members to join us in raising funds and spreading the word about what we did for our community. I was very honored in those early years to be the chair of this group, and I can tell you that with many dedicated community members, we increased in that year our membership in the Oak Society to 250, which was a big deal in those days. Eventually, I went on in the foundation to become the first woman to chair the foundation board and served in that role for 3 years. Being a part and sharing what we do and did has been an important part and vital part of my life. I've continued to be involved at the hospital, and currently I'm proud to be on the governing board, the foundation board, and I can tell you that I continually am inspired to spread the good word about Glendale Adventist Medical Center.
I want to give just a little different slant to service. I want to talk a little bit about what service means to the person who's doing the serving. There's an interesting thing about service because frequently the person who is giving receives as much or more than the person or people they're giving to. John and I were missionaries in Japan early in our marriage, and we were young, and yes, we worked hard, but at the end of the 4 years, we looked at each other and wondered, what had we done for Japan? We weren't sure, but we were very clear about what the experience of being there had done for us. The same sort of thing happened to me when I joined Glendale Adventist Medical Center on the foundation board. It was about the mid-1980s, last century, sounds like a long time ago. And it was about the time that the hospital was opening its doors to allow people from the community, actually invite community leaders into the hospital, onto the committees, and especially this foundation board. We had to make money. As Sandy mentioned, the purpose of the foundation board is to make money for the hospital to buy that equipment that Dr. Pereira was talking about, and that's very necessary for a high level of care. In working, planning fundraisers and working together with these incredible people from the community that I never would have had a chance to rub shoulders with in any other way, it was a real blessing to me, and their friendship continues to enrich my life. And then I joined Glendale Adventist Governing Board, and what an eye-opening experience that was for me. I was immediately impressed that with what attention and detail the executive team looked at everything that went on in the hospital. From the ambiance to the patient care, everything was noticed and looked at. Nothing was passed over. If one patient falls, it's a big deal. They spend time and study trying to figure out how can we keep that from happening again. Even more so on the subcommittee for safety and quality assurance for patients. No detail goes unstudied, looked over. After every committee meeting and every board meeting, I come away feeling so proud of our institution on the Hill, and I have so much trust and confidence in the way it's governed. So if you ask me, what did I do in service for Glendale Adventist or for the church? I'm not sure, but I can tell you it's had a huge effect on me. I guess.
It's amazing that so many years had gone by so fast. It was in 1968 when my wife and I got married after medical school. We picked Glendale Adventist, that time Glendale Sanitarium, to do my internship and my residency And I chose the OB, obstetrics and gynecology. One reason is a very happy fit of specialty. And also I have very traumatic experience in grade school in China when my second grade teacher never showed up. She died at childbirth. That may have been some impact to why I picked obstetrics and gynecology. We work, and when I finished in the 72 residency program, I was invited by the OB teaching faculty to be one of 3 members in the teaching program. And I taught for about 31 years in the residency program. At that time, the obstetrics and gynecology practice is very private, but with the OB residency program, we did about several hundred babies a month. We were able to outreach to the underserved people and also the underserved areas. And I think in '74 I met Sandy Schultz, who was then the director of the nursing at the residency program. And so all these years, we've been very involved in the hospital. My wife also was involved too in the nursing and several committees in the volunteer work and gift shop. And subsequently, we joined the Glendale City Church, and I'm very happy with the wonderful friendship, the many people that we know, the music program, and the ministers. And I then did also a fellowship in the fetal maternal medicine at USC. And we continue to work at the hospital. And subsequently, after all these years, we trained over several hundred OB residents who are all over the country. And the few events that comes to mind that is kind of dramatic or interesting or incredible was the 1971 Silmar earthquake, when I was trying to give a baby, I decided to give a spinal anesthesia. The earthquake lasted for about 1 minute, but it seems like forever. And the clock behind my head fell down and hung by the wire, almost hitting my head. My Korean nurse was holding the patient, and her eyes became spherical. Because she was, and there's only one place to hide, and that's only under the table. And I told her, I'm going to be under there, not you. It was, and so I went to my room, all the books from the wall, went to the other side of the wall where I was supposed to be sleeping. There were like 50 books, flew from the, I would be hit by the books if I was in bed. Fortunately, I was in a baby. And also the other event that I can remember was 1994 when I delivered triplets from a 51-year-old lady vaginally. So it's all over the news. Again, these are not something, these are things that we do. And the programs, we went to outreach program at Highland Park, Eagle Rock, to help all these underserved people. And finally, I still do a lot of old-fashioned obstetrics and gynecology. And with the social media right now, there's a lot of people looking for births, like breech babies, twins, and all those, and avoid C-sections. So we, as a hospital, what I do, and we're attracting a lot of people who wants that kind of a birth and not having a C-section. And we also want to thank the church that we come here for, all the friends, all the support, and the administration, Kevin, all these years that have given me the support, the nurses, the anesthesiology, the NICU team have all been very supportive, and I'm grateful for being part of the Glendale Adventist Medical Center and the Glendale City Church. Thank you.
And thank you. So, Dr. Ronald Wu, Dr. Nancy Vogt, Sandy Schultz, and Dr. Robert Pereira, thank you for sharing these memories about mission that's been shared between Glendale Adventist or actually Glendale City Church and Glendale Adventist Medical Center. See, you've loaned us these people, and we've made good use of them. This has been mission, and as they've been able to invoke that, enact it, embody it right here in the Glendale community, and we just are profoundly appreciative for the contributions that you've made here at Glendale Adventist and to our community. And it's been shared by us here as Seventh-day Adventists in Glendale. So thank you. Appreciate that. And that mission continues. And not only does it continue locally here in Glendale, but sometimes it reaches far beyond Glendale. Kevin's going to share with us a bit more about a very recent activity where, in fact, the mission has reached outside of Glendale to another country. Kevin?
Thank you, Bruce. And yes, it is exciting to see that the mission of the hospital that started 110 years ago is alive and well, and not just in the immediate community, because when you find people as passionate and as talented and as generous as those that serve at Glendale Adventist Medical Center, they just want to do more. And this last year, we decided to put that into action to test that theory among our medical staff and our nursing staff and our technical staff. And we identified a little hospital in the northeast corner of Armenia called Noryam Beryan Hospital that really, really needed a lot of help. Now, just before I move this slide, this is, there's some things about Armenia that you may not know. This is a monastery called Hekatsin. It's in the Tavush region, in the area where we went for our mission trip. And it's about 1,200 years old. One of the newer ones in the Armenian faith of their buildings and sanctuaries and monuments to the Lord. But let's talk about Armenia, because some people don't really know much about it. It's on the globe. It's in a place we call Eurasia, between Asia and Europe, and so and it's very small. It used to, way back in actually BC, in the BC era, it actually stretched from the Caspian Sea all the way to the Mediterranean. So it was quite an empire at the time. Over those centuries and decades, or centuries, it has been compressed by a long shot. And currently, Armenia is this little red postage stamp right here. Now, it's surrounded by some very interesting nations. It's got Georgia to the north, which is a post-Soviet bloc country. Azerbaijan, but Georgia is historically a Christian country when you think about faith affiliations. Azerbaijan is Muslim, Turkey is Muslim, and Iran is Muslim. So this, and the smallest border is with Georgia. Most of the border is with Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Iran. And so they're really surrounded by a lot of people that really don't appreciate their culture very well. And it's amazing to me because Armenia prides itself in being the first nation in the world to designate itself as Christian. So it was about 300 AD where the leaders in Armenia adopted the faith, and it has been preserved ever since. And I don't know if they argue about this with the Catholics, but I think this is prior to Constantinople, and all of that history that we understand about the Catholic Church. So they now are the Armenian or Apostolic Christian Church, and virtually just about every Armenian you meet is a Christian. It's really fascinating how that faith connection with that heritage is so persistent, more than most nationalities that I've come across in my few years on the planet. But interestingly enough, and sadly though, most Armenians are outside of Armenia. There's about 3 million Armenians in the country at this point in time. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, in 1991, I believe, they became independent after the Berlin Wall dropped in 89. So there's about 3 million living in the country. There's about 8 million living outside. And you say, well, what's that about? Why would there be so many living outside? Well, here's a real quick history lesson. This is back in the BC era. That was the height of their power, that sea, the shining sea. Then 300 AD, they became the first country to adopt Christianity. And then go through the next 1,700 years or so. And in 1915, there was a tragic event called the Armenian Genocide. It lasted for 6 or 7 years, or 8 years, 15 to 23 is how historians have cataloged this. And it was considered the first mass extermination of humans in the 20th century. About 1.2 to 1.5 million Armenians lost their lives in that conflict. And you hear about this every year. On April 24, the Armenian community in the local area commemorates that tragedy and seeks justice. They really haven't gotten it to date. But then between 22 and 91, it was Soviet Armenia. So they had a different overseer, not one that was destroying or wiping out their community, but they were overseen by the Soviets. And since 1991, they have been independent. So this last year, they commemorated 100 years since the Armenian Genocide. So what happened during this genocide, though, was a diaspora, just like with the Jews in Nazi Germany. And so many of the Armenians fled, and they fled to different parts of the country. They fled into Russia, Lebanon, Iran, America, South America, a lot of different areas that were friendly to them and welcomed these immigrants who were fleeing persecution and destruction and annihilation. So that's why there's 8 million Armenians outside and 3 million inside the country. So how did we get involved? Well, this actually goes back to about 2004. Scott Reiner was 2 predecessors ago for me, was the CEO, and he made a diplomatic trip to Armenia, not to the same place that we went to, but went over there and kind of developed some relationships with the Armenian community. In 2014, I got together with a lot of doctors and just started thinking about what this might look like. And that's how we, through a connection with the Armenia Fund, which is a local fundraising organization, an NGO that raises funds throughout the diaspora to bring resources into Armenia so that it can get rebuilt. That connection became very important to our success. Now, this is an interesting point. What is the definition of a missionary? A missionary really goes to where God has not really been recognized yet, or the faith hasn't been recognized yet. There are no SDA medical facilities anywhere in Armenia. No clinics. I mean, I'm sure there's physicians and people like that, but in terms of institutional presence, it's non-existent. So that actually made it more exciting because we have so many Armenians in our local community, and knowing that they really don't understand Seventh-day Adventists at all, we decided that this would be a great place to go. It's really true missionary work. So what did we do? I'm going to cut to the chase. We actually had 2 trips. We did a scouting expedition last spring to identify, to verify that the hospital really needed our services, that it was the, quote, right place to go, that the people, were desiring of our ministry and outreach, and so forth. And we needed to identify common goals. last thing, I think probably the first mistake missionaries sometimes make is deciding in advance what someone needs. And so we determined not to do that, and we went in advance, developed a very list of very discrete common goals, and then we went back and prepared to meet their needs. And we ended up with 31 missionaries from Glendale Adventist, 15 physicians, 8 nurses, of which I consider myself one, and 8 support personnel. In advance, we sent 6,000 pounds of supplies and equipment, plus 500 pounds of pharmaceuticals. So when we got there, we knew that we needed to do a lot of things. And we actually were able to deliver on day one, not as part of the 5,000 pounds or 6,000 pounds, a brand new ambulance. It was a Russian ambulance that was purchased through the generosity of the Adventist health executives from across the health system. Last summer, I made an appeal during worship at one of our executive retreats and asked for their support. And of all the CEOs in the health system and the corporate executives, they actually donated $50,000 that Sabbath morning, toward our Armenia mission trip, and that allowed us to buy this ambulance and some other things as well. We did 35 surgeries and about 800 screenings and primary care interventions in the course of 5 clinic days. And so that was our purpose, that was our objective. We were able to raise about $150,000 between the Armenian community and people that were interested in supporting our program, plus the Adventist Health contribution and so forth. We did a variety of fundraisers. We actually spent about $200,000, so I guess you could say that other $50,000 was a contribution from the hospital. But what we ultimately did was brought hope and courage to a community that is really under siege. It's the northern edge, like I mentioned, is with a country that does not appreciate them at all, called Azerbaijan, and they're very hostile. And actually, the month before we arrived, there was some violence, mortal violence across that border. And so there's not a lot of tourism up there. People don't really like to live up there because they just don't want to get shot at. So when we were there, this busload of missionaries from America, it kind of just blew their minds, to coin a term. They could not believe what we were doing there, and they kept asking us why. And our answer kept being, because God called us here. And they would tell us things like, they didn't say, you're like angels. They said, you are angels. I mean, I don't know about you, but I haven't been an angel lately. But when I was in Armenia, I was an angel. And to know that God was using me in that way was just spine-tingling and very, very exciting. So here's some pictures just quickly, because I know we've got lots of other things to cover this morning. But when we got there, we met with the health minister of the country. When you go into a foreign country, you want to make sure that you're following proper protocols. Meeting with the right leaders so that there's no surprises about you. You're not sneaking in the back door, and you're being respectful to the culture and to the leadership. And this is a doctor. He's their health minister. He's a urologist, Dr. Muradian, very fine fellow. Here's our bus and a subset of our team. All the doctors and nurses and stuff. We had some people from White Memorial Medical Center and Simi Valley as well. So this became kind of a regional initiative. Now you might ask, well, why is there a flag and a Red Cross on the side of the bus? Well, remember I told you about those hostilities on the border. And literally, as we drive up to our destination, the road weaves in and out of the border with Azerbaijan. And we wanted anybody that had binoculars and a rifle to know that this was not a bus to be messed with. You really don't want to mess with the Red Cross or with people of a medical mission or the United States. So this was kind of like our visible insurance policy. Full disclosure, this is who we are. This isn't a bus you really want to mess with. But we believe God's providence was more important than that. But you want to be shrewd as well, right? So this is our host, Greg Boyrazian. He's with the Armenia Fund. Fine young man, loves God, loves our mission, loves our hospital, and really was a great shepherd to do the logistics, getting us in and out of the country. This is our logo. We declared our mission outreach to be called Compassion in Action, and this particular trip was called Mission Armenia. This is the two peaks. Anybody know which two peaks those might be? Thank you, Ararat. And when the fog clears and the smoke clears and you could see Ararat, it's very inspiring. This is that ambulance I was telling you about. It's kind of a funny looking vehicle, but it's the latest and greatest in Russian ambulance technology, and I got to drive it around the parking lot a couple of times. Here's our team with some of the physicians from there. We brought our own scrubs so that we were easily identified by the hospital personnel. This is one of our pediatricians doing an exam. Our pulmonary intensivist, Dr. Abulian, he actually did some procedures there that had never been done before, which was part of the whole program. The whole purpose was to inspire this hospital to do things they hadn't really thought about, because sometimes you have the capacity, but you just don't have the confidence. He helped give them that confidence. I got to play nurse while I was there. As an administrator, I don't get to do that very often, but I keep my license up. But here I was able to, I was working in the clinic doing cholesterol screening, and this happens to be the governor of the region who let me screen his cholesterol. We had a lot of fun that day. Arbi Nahapetian, he's our chief medical officer at the hospital. He's a cardiologist, was very busy in the clinics. Here's Dr. Kotikian and Dr. Kim, Robin Kim, if you know Dr. Tile and Robin Kim. She's an anesthesiologist. He's a maxillofacial surgeon. Did some amazing work there. We brought one of our family practice residents. This is one of our nurse leaders. This is my wife. She came along. Elena, she can't be with us today because she's with our grandson, but she did vital signs for all the patients in the clinics and stayed very busy. Dr. Maladonian, an internist. Our pharmacy director, Dr. Masmanian, a local family practice doctor. Dr. Tekelian, which is Dr. Kushkarian's wife. She's an internist. Some of you may recognize your doctor up here because these are some of the highest quality doctors in Glendale. Dr. Kushkarian, a surgeon. He did a lot of those surgeries. Ramela Markarian, our vice president of business development. This is one of the doctors from the hospital there in Noyambarian who really helped get it all done. Dr. Mesrobian and various people. This is an anesthesiologist who is the only anesthesiologist at this hospital in Noyambarian. And if you look, this is like on day one. Does he look very happy? I mean, you can't see his face, but you can see his eyes. He looks a little bit like, are you serious? You're not going to take my picture, are you? And that's really what his temperament was for the first few days. But when he saw what we were doing and how we did it and how our anesthesiologists affected him and helped to, and used such, not just skill, but care and respectful mentoring of what he and his staff could do, this is what he looked like a few days later. And these are our two anesthesiologists, Dr. Akopian and Dr. Kim, and he was just smiling from ear to ear. And he only had one question when we left. When are you coming back? So we knew with that very stoic look at the beginning to the end that we had accomplished our mission. This is actually me. I was circulating, and it looks like I'm praying. I'm actually just trying to keep my hands sterile so I can be of use. But this is in the operating theater. This is a little girl who had a cleft palate repair. Dr. Kotikian in surgery. There's Susie Axt, one of our OR director. Here's the OR team. It's a little hard to see. This is actually the Armenian Genocide Memorial, which of course you always visit when you're there, and commemoration and recognition that the world is a dangerous place, but that great things can rise up from the ashes of tragedy. And very last, that very last slide. Let's see if I can back in. Oh, no. Anyway, we were invited kind of as a cherry on top. We were invited to meet with the president of Armenia at the very end. This was a surprise. We didn't expect it. We didn't ask for it. But he had heard about these crazy California doctors and nurses who had come 8,000 miles to serve in one of his neediest communities, and he just had to meet us. And there he is. Thank you. Good job. So this is the president of Armenia, and we actually went to his office and talked for about an hour with the translator in the booth and the headsets, the whole thing. It was really kind of cool. But he was just so generous and so appreciative that we had done this. And our friends at the Armenia Fund say, and they're really insightful into what's going on in Armenia, they said, no one has ever done anything like this before. A couple of doctors will come in and do some surgery in a modern hospital, and they'll do that as a mission work. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to take an entire infrastructure and basically to plant new services and bring the entire care team to a hospital, never happened before. And so our vision is to actually do this over and over again for maybe 4 to 5 years, because our idea is to help this little hospital get on its feet and be sustainable and to see its own vision. So the nice thing about this is that the people are very passionate. Every single person, we all paid our own way. We were not sponsored by this. We all took our own, vacation time off and so forth. So this was missionary work at its finest. But when we got back, every person on that team, all 31, said, when are we going back? And I have to be on the bus. So we know that we're on to something. God is alive and well in our mission work. Obviously, our main focus is here in Glendale, but once in a while, we get to go out and do something special. Thank you very much.
It's amazing what can be done when we're engaged in shared mission. Absolutely. What a profound impact. And, we started out by saying mission is alive and well in Glendale, and at Glendale Adventist Medical Center, and with the support of the Glendale City Church. And that's really what we want to emphasize with our last section today. So Jason, can you come up and share with us what we're doing in the contemporary setting of Glendale in order to share our mission working together?
I'm happy to do that. Thank you very much. My name is Jason Schlatter. I'm the Executive Director of the Glendale Communitas Initiative. And talking about mission and ministry, it really is for us about collaboration and connections. Our mission is to provide poverty recovery and prevention programs here in Glendale and the surrounding areas that are personalized for individuals and families. And thereby advancing, the health and well-being of our community at large. We mobilize local resources, and the collaboration piece is we connect with over 24 faith-based, nonprofit, business, and civic organizations, all to help people get back up on their feet again. And it began right here in Glendale City Church. It was this little seedling kernel that Pastor Todd Leonard wanted to get started. So in the fall of 2014, Todd introduced us to Bruce Nelson and the Glendale Adventist Medical Center, and they became one of our first community partners. And I have to tell you that connection has been invaluable, not just to Communitas, but to the community at large. We opened in March of 2015. Since then, I don't know if you noticed, the Glendale Adventist Medical Center's outreach program is a diabesity van. It is a mobile clinic that provides free cardiovascular and diabetes assessments with a continuum of care that person can then take to their primary health physician. If they don't have one, Glendale Adventist Medical Center puts them in touch with those that can help them. And it is expertly run by Andai Hill and Marcella Sago at the hospital. And because Communitas is a religious neutral organization committed to doing good out in our community, we partner with over 15 churches across 12 denominations, all around Glendale and just outside of its borders. And since June, through the Communitas connection, we have been able to take the Glendale Adventist Medical Center's diabesity van to the Incarnation Catholic Church, Holy Family Catholic Church, Salem Lutheran, and last week here at Glendale City Church. That is 4 new neighborhoods and communities of need that did not previously have access to this type of health care. That's astounding. This program is continuing to go forward. Another venue of connection and the partnership between Communitas and the hospital and this church is through their CHLA Kids program. It's a nutrition program that provides nutrition education for parents in underserved populations with children 5 years and under. It's provided free, it's on a monthly basis, and in a couple of months, because Communitas is housed at First Lutheran Church as part of their community outreach, they also have a food bank, which they open once a week to homeless and underserved individuals. Well, we now get to bring in a class, a morning of classes by CHLA Kids from Glendale Adventist that provides all of these nutrition classes and techniques and how to get healthier food for cheaper that they can afford, and then they can go and access this other church's food bank. It is this combination, a bigger bang for the buck is what it's all about. It's collaborating and connections over and over and over again into new ways, new areas, and new reaches to really get people back up on their feet again. It's tapping the very best of us that we have to offer that makes all of this possible, and this commitment to help people get up on their feet. Because of that, Communitas has been able to increase by an average of 74% the access to wages and income supports for our program participants. That means that people in poverty in our program, because of our partnerships with Glendale Adventist Medical Center, other nonprofits, the Civic Center, business partners, have 74% more money in their pocket to help them get up and on their feet again. This could not have been done without working together like this. And because Glendale Adventist Medical Center, the Glendale Communitas initiative really is taking an ownership of the health, which is the theme of the Glendale Healthier Communities Coalition, we get to advance this work on a daily basis out in our community. We've already heard this morning some of the great work over the 110 years that the hospital is doing. We'll be hearing a little bit about the service that Glendale City Church has been doing over their last 110 years. And I would just like to say that we are both proud and grateful of these connections with the City Church, with our faith community at large, and Glendale Adventist Medical Center. We congratulate you on 110 years of service, and we look forward to continuing that journey together to really build health and well-being for the entire community. And thank you very much. We're very grateful. And congratulations.
Thank you, Jason. And we are so impressed. I have to tell you, my entire team there at Glendale Adventist and everybody that's familiar with what you are doing through the Communitas program is so impressed with this initiative. It's incredibly unique in some respects and a profound impact on the lives of the people it touches, and so collaborative. It represents each of us, both at Glendale Adventist Medical Center and here at City Church, so well. And we are so proud to be supportive of the program that you're doing. And I'm sure that you must feel incredibly wonderful about this program as well. So you certainly should be. It's certainly something that you can take great pride in putting together and maintaining. So congratulations to you. So we've been very honored to have you here. For us to be here with you. We're very honored to be here with you this morning in helping to celebrate the 110th anniversary of Glendale City Church and our shared mission together. So thank you for having us. Now, in closing, let's bow our heads and we'll close with prayer. Thank you so much, Lord, for your grace and kindness to each one of us, for empowering us to be missionaries. Whether it's here, right here in this community, or abroad, Father, we thank you for the opportunity to share in the mission that you've initiated. Bless us to this end as we work together, Father. Enrich us, empower us, fill us with your love and grace. May we represent you well in what we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Glendale Adventist Medical Center. So great to see the history of mission and the ongoing mission of what you do. And we're so proud to be with you in that mission. I want to just make sure you know where we go from here. During the next 25 minutes, you will be pleased to enjoy the music of one of our former organists, Dr. Charles Witt, who'll be sharing music of the Pioneers on his piano. And then at 11 o'clock, we will continue with our worship service. So thank you very much for being here. Also, if you do need to take a break, restrooms are right below the lobby, and our new church heritage room is open as well, down right below the lobby as well. Thank you.